Good morning or afternoon, everyone. My name is Sierra Johnson. I'm the Education Manager at the VPPPA National Office, and I will be your moderator today. I want to thank you all for joining us for this month's Labor Summit, celebrating women in construction. Just a couple of quick housekeeping items before we get started. We'll have time at the end of today's panel discussion for audience Q&A. So if you have any questions for our speakers, please feel free to type those into the chat located on the right side of your screen. You can also find some links in the description below today's presentation that might be of interest to you. As with all of our labor summits, today's presentation would not be possible without the efforts of our Labor and Management Committee. So before we introduce today's panel, I'll pass things over to Labor and Management Committee Chair and National Board Member Jack Griffith to talk a little bit more about the purpose of the Labor Summit and what you can look forward to in the coming months.
Alrighty. Thank you, Sierra. So to fit your time zone, I'm also going to say good morning and good afternoon. And I want to thank you for registering for today's Labor Summit. So the purpose of the Labor Summit is to engage workers, both represented, non-represented, along with management to discuss workplace safety jointly and collectively. All right, Labor Summits are conducted monthly using a diverse mix of speakers and topics. So who have we had as speakers? Well, members of our Labor Management Committee, workers, labor leaders, non-labor management, OSHA VPP managers, safety professionals, and members of our National VPPA Board of Directors. So as Sierra said, our labor summits, they last 30 minutes, and that allows to minimize the impacts to worker schedules so that they can participate. So if you're a manager on the call, consider getting a few of your workers together to hear our presenters. If your site or your employees are interested in presenting, or you have a topic you want to hear about, let Sierra or myself know, and we'll get it on the schedule. You know, one of the things I keep telling people, you don't have to be a professional speaker for these sessions. All right, so here's an opportunity. If your company would like to get high-level visibility and recognition, we're looking for a sponsor to help support our labor summits. The VPPA is a 501c corporation. All contributions are tax deductible, so contact Sierra if you have any questions on that. All right, attendees will again have the opportunity to ask questions using the chat feature at the end. Next month's Labor Summit, which is April 6th, Morton Salt will be our presenters. I want to thank everybody for participating today. In 1987, Congress declared the entire month of March as Women's History Month. Support for the month-long celebration has continued with every president since. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Sierra Johnson to introduce our speakers for today's Labor Summit.
Thank you very much, Jack. Our speakers today will be Casey Kennedy, Tina McAnally, and Maddy Patrone with UCOR, based out of Oak Ridge, Tennessee. Casey has been with UCOR since 2018 and is a proud member of the Laborers International Union, Local 818. She spends most of her time in the safety arena as a craft safety advocate, as well as the chair of the local safety improvement team that she founded herself to represent environmental remediation activities. Tina has been a member of the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 917, for 22 years, where she has worked on both Tennessee Valley Authority and Department of Energy sites. As a seasoned operator of a wide variety of heavy equipment, Tina specializes in the demolition of high-hazard facilities and structures, including nuclear reactors. And last but of course not least, we are joined by Maddy Patrone, a member of the International Brotherhood of Carpenters and Joiners Local 50, where she serves as the chair of the Sisters of the local union. Maddy has been a leading voice for women in the trade and mentoring them to excel while working through various challenges. Before we start our panel discussion today, we would first like to play a brief video to give our audience a little bit of background about UCOR as a company and the company that our panel is coming from today. And now that we've seen a little bit about the company that has brought our panel together, we're going to dive straight into our first question for the group. Could you please each tell us how you came to be in the construction industry? Casey, we'll start with you.
Thanks, Sierra. So a little over 4 years ago, I was hired in as a laborer out of our local 818. But 40 years prior to that, my work experience was always in the public sector, public service. Whether it was at the utility district, Chamber of Commerce, or working in my husband's business, I was always in the public serving. And honestly, I got tired of it. I got tired of the servitude. I wanted to find me a job where I could go in and do my 40, get my paycheck, and go home and not worry about it. But I was wrong. I was way wrong. Soon as I came to work at UCOR, I realized that my servitude was not over with. I wanted to serve others. I looked for opportunities to serve others. And so when the opportunity came along to lead our local safety improvement team that had just been developed and to be a craft safety advocate, I looked at that as a dual opportunity to not only serve my coworkers, but to also serve my company. I have enjoyed every minute of it, and I have no regrets.
Came looking for a paycheck, and you got so much more out of it. You'll love to hear that. Tina, what about yourself? What brought you into construction?
Well, I was 18, and a guy I had went to school with was telling me about the laborers local. So I was interested and went and applied. And I just went on one short 3-month job with them. And immediately when I got there, I realized that I really wanted to be operating heavy equipment. So an operator there talked to me, and I asked him how to get started. He told me to go to the operating engineers 917 Hall in Knoxville and apply for the apprenticeship. After that job was over, a friend of mine and I went to put in our applications, and the lady that was working there, she let him, it was a male, she let him fill out an application, but told me, she said, "We are not taking any apprentices." She said, "You can write your name and number down, but we will not be calling you." Okay. So we left, and first thing the next morning, they called me and sent me to work. I arrived on the job site that day, and they took me to a roller. They showed me forward and reverse and left me the rest of the day to learn it. Me and the lady in the office did eventually become good friends, though.
Glad to hear that you eventually became good friends with her, and that sounds like a very memorable first day on a job. And Maddie, what about yourself? How did you first get started in construction?
Yeah, so I was working unsteady hours in kitchens for about 7 years, and I wanted a change in my lifestyle. So I joined the local 50 carpenters, and that provided me with a steady schedule, better benefits, and it led to new opportunities and proper training.
Can't beat proper training. Now that we have learned what brought you each into this particular industry and a little bit about how you got started, let's talk a bit more about what that experience in the industry has been like. Casey, starting again with you, could you please talk to us about some of those high hazard challenges that you mentioned on your job site?
Oh, yes. So the UCOR workforce at ORNL faces high hazards that you don't find in but just a handful of buildings nationally. These pre- and post-World War II buildings, all that we are actively decommissioning at the time, contain radiological hazards. But along with those hazards, we also see asbestos, beryllium, mercury, lead, silica, PCBs, transuranics, which are transuranics, man-made waste from the process of spent nuclear fuel. I can spit that out. But UCOR does a phenomenal job of giving us the proper training that we need to prepare us to be safety focused and to go into these high hazard facilities for deactivation and demolition.
And speaking of that training, what do you do to mitigate some of those high hazards?
So UCOR has a stellar safety record. they are known nationally for their safety. And we have a very strong integrated safety systems. We have a very good voluntary protection program, a safety conscious work environment, highly skilled workforce. And these together bring a safety environment that comes from our organization, filters down and is embraced by the employees. UCOR's number one goal is that everyone goes home safe at the end of the day, just the same way we got here in the morning. And it's through a combination of all these safety procedures, safety protocols, our questioning attitude, stop work authority, that we have this safety in place. And that is our biggest control that we have for our high hazard facilities.
Very well said. And it sounds too like the culture of your workplace is a source of inspiration for you. So shifting away from maybe the specifics of the job, for you as a woman in construction, where do you find that inspiration?
Oh my goodness. If I could just name all the women out here who have inspired me, we would be here the rest of the day. So I will just say there are so many women, one in particular, Ashley, that have inspired me and mentored me, tutored me, schooled me, took me under their wing, and have taught me good work ethics, safety. They are pioneers and trailblazers in the construction industry, and they continue to pave the way for women to come into our work site to this very day. Personally, I cannot thank the women out here in my work life enough. The comparison is of gratitude that I have for them is so much bigger than what they have gave me.
Thank you very much for that very honest answer. And I think it's safe to say that if you haven't already been someone else's inspiration, you will be very soon. Moving to Tina, I understand you have a large family at home with several young children and an adoptee on the way. How do you balance that work and family life?
Thankfully, I have a lot of family that helps me. My husband and I, we have 3 daughters, and we are in the process of adopting our 4th. She came to us when she was 9 weeks old, and she's almost 2 now. So I really have to plan and try to keep things scheduled and just stay on top of it. So I make sure I don't miss anything. Most evenings I'm rushing straight home from work to cook supper or go to the kids' ball games or just whatever they have going on. And I've really had a lot of sleepless nights in the past 2 years, with a new baby. One of the critical things here at UCOR and doing high hazard jobs is to be mission ready, both mentally, physically, and emotionally. And I guess if you're not sleeping well, you're not on top of your game. Okay. So I have the best general foreman and several foremen that I have total faith in. If I go to them and tell them I'm not mission ready today, I've had a bad night, they would be compassionate. They would not, I wouldn't be in trouble or anything. And they would move me to a less hazardous area. They would do that for any of us. That's just how they are. They take care of us. They're great people.
Valuing your workers is very important. Your worker values family. It's a wonderful full circle that you bring to. We mentioned earlier that you have been in this industry for over 20 years. In those years, what values have been instilled in you?
Being a dependable, reliable, trustworthy member of the team. Safety has been ingrained in me since I began this, which is many years ago. So I really appreciate that UCOR takes that into consideration and puts safety above all else for our skilled workforce here at UCOR. Also, they provide us with the most advanced technologies to keep us safe and make sure that we go home safely every night to our families. Everyone here is like a big family, and that's what everybody's priority is to watch each other's back and take care of each other.
Excellent. You mentioned earlier in how you started into the industry that you had maybe a rough start. Would you mind talking a little bit more about some other challenges that you faced by being one of the few women in your trade, period, and also the only female heavy equipment operator currently at UCOR?
Since I started operating heavy equipment, I've always felt that I really needed to prove myself a little more than the guys had to. And I really pushed myself to just be my very best. There have been times that, you may be working with a new crew or new people that have never seen you operate. And at first they're skeptical, thinking she's not going to be that good or something like that. And I always kind of laughed to myself because almost always their minds are changed almost immediately. And by the end of it, they are requesting me for their next job. So it's a good thing and it's a good feeling. I'm my own biggest critic and I push myself every day to do my very best. Since being at UCOR, my supervisors have really believed in me and they've gave me a lot of great opportunities, including getting to do the demolition of the 3010 building at ORNL, which was the first reactor to be demolished in Oak Ridge, and a lot of other projects that's being here, but they really had faith in me and I very much appreciate it.
It is important to have a very strong support system, even when you are the only woman in your immediate field. It also just sounds very exciting to be able to do that kind of demolition work.
I really like it.
And Maddy, we heard earlier that you are the chair of the Sisters of the Brotherhood at Local 50. Could you tell us a little bit more about what that group is and what your role within it is?
Yeah, the Sisters in the Brotherhood is a group that provides us with resources on training on communications and leadership. My role for Local 50 is mentoring and coaching, and a lot of that has to do with listening to other people's experiences and understand how we can face the challenges that are presented to us on the job site.
Excellent. And working off of that role with the Sisters in the Brotherhood, what impact do you find female leadership has on the overall success of construction?
Yeah. Women tend to be more detailed and analytical thinkers. This helps us with safety and how we approach work. Having physical size and strength disadvantages, we look for innovative ways to complete the work task rather than just getting right into it. Kind of think it forward.
It brings a different perspective, a different way of thinking to things, which always seldom hurts, I find. And last but not least, what advice do you have for women to influence that kind of positive change in the construction industry's culture?
Changing the culture can increase membership and create a positive work environment for everyone. Groups like the Sisters give us the tools we need for success. We need to provide positive role models for young women and also experienced women that are already on the field.
Absolutely. Again, that culture influences that sense of community, and I'm sure that Tina would like to eventually not be the only heavy equipment operator in her immediate vicinity. So the goal is always to bring more women, bring more qualified personnel into these sorts of roles. I want to thank you each for your individual questions. And now one last question before we open things up to our audience. What final lasting advice do you have for women who are interested in pursuing a similar career in construction or your specific trade? And Casey, let's start with you.
Mine is very simple. Be still. Be still and clear your mind so you can absorb the knowledge, build on your skill, lean into your strength, and be strong in your skill. Be strong in your standards and be strong as a woman in construction.
Stillness and strength are things that we don't often think of going hand in hand, but they really, really do. So that's an interesting perspective to have. Tina, what about yourself? What advice do you have?
Research the different trades and see what you're interested in. Step out and try new things. Don't be afraid to get into it. I knew nothing about operating when I joined. Literally, they showed me forward and reverse. So, now I operate anything from the smallest forklift to the biggest excavator. It's just, you have to get in the seat and learn it and operate it. You just can't read it in a book. But the training is just top notch. They will absolutely train you in every aspect. And when you get in that piece of machinery, you have the expertise and the knowledge to keep yourself and everyone around you safe.
And I do want to point out, we were talking earlier that you mentioned you will sometimes operate the full range of heavy equipment within a few hours of one another.
Yes, there was one day one of the mechanics saw me and he looked at me. He said, "I saw you on the smallest forklift here today, all the way up to the biggest one we have. Are you just bouncing around everywhere?" So yeah, a lot of times we do have to swap out and do different tasks with different machinery, and we're all skilled and run all the equipment pretty much. So we all just swap out and get the job done.
Absolutely. And Maddy, how about yourself? What advice do you have for women seeking a similar career in construction or in your trade?
My advice is to say yes to opportunities and training. Speak up about what's important to you, and encourage and respect everybody.
It's a good life lesson to take into, I think, all aspects of your day to day. Well, I want to thank all of you for your answers today. Now we will open things up to our audience, as we mentioned at the top of the hour. So if you have questions for our panel, please do feel free to leave those in the chat. While we give folks some time to gather their thoughts, a question that I had, if you could go back to your past self before you got started down this path, what would you tell that past version of you? We'll start with Casey.
Okay. Not to fear. I had knowledge of the jobs out here many years ago, but I just didn't see that I would have the opportunity to come out here and do what I'm doing. And, hats off to Tina, raising kids and being an operator, my goodness. But my earlier version of myself, I would have told myself not to be so afraid.
Thank you very much. Tina, what about you? What would you tell past Tina?
I really have to agree with that on the not being afraid. When I was younger, and I started in this industry at a young age anyway, but when I was younger, there's no way I would have got up here and done this talk. In school, if I had to get up and do anything speaking in front of class, I would totally miss that day. So just be confident in yourself and you'll be just fine. Just keep telling yourself and keep striving to be your absolute best. And at the end of the day, you are awesome.
Excellent. We're very grateful that you said yes to this particular opportunity. Maddy, how about yourself? What would you tell your past you?
Well, I definitely agree with both of them on not having that fear, and you get over it pretty quickly once you try it for the first time. Any task that you're doing, I think I would just listen. That's pretty much it. Listen to everybody and respect their answers and the way they do things.
So there you have it. The secret to a successful career in construction is to listen, to continue to learn, and to say yes to opportunities. That's what I heard. Do we have any other questions for our audience? We have one from the audience. Tina, do your kids know just what kind of trailblazer you are?
They know. Anytime my friends are around or even my family, they like to tell them, all the stories. And a lot of times I've even had my husband meet me at the job, and showed my kids what I was doing. My two middle daughters, they had come to the job site once, and I was on a small little forklift, and they always called it my tiny car. So yeah, they pretty much know, and yeah, going right in my footsteps. My youngest is definitely wanting to get into this trade, and she's just waiting until she's 18 and she'll be right here.
That's amazing. Keeping a lovely family legacy to have. Another question that came through from our audience. Each of you seem to enjoy what you do every day. What do you see as that next challenge that you would like to take on? And again, we'll start with Casey.
Oh, short of retirement, I would probably say, I just want to continue to serve my coworkers better, and it doesn't matter what that challenge may be. I want to really work for them. I've been doing a little bit of an instructor's gig here and there, and I really do enjoy that. And if that means that it's helping my coworkers, that's what I want to do.
Teaching and helping other people continue that lifelong learning is an excellent form of service. Tina, how about yourself? What's your next challenge? Is there another nuclear reactor that you'd like to help demo?
There is another building coming up, yes, very soon, and I'm definitely hoping to be on that. We don't know really yet who's going to be on it, but I hope to be right there at it. Yeah, that's about it.
All right. And Maddy, how about you? What about your next challenge?
I'd like to continue working with the sisters and learn more about it and how I can help them, support them in any way.
Sounds like an excellent plan to me, and certainly worth the challenge. Do we have any last minute questions for our panel? How about you, Jack?
Yes, I do. Construction is typically a male dominant world. What were some of the challenges you had to fit in?
You've been out here the longest.
When I was younger, it's not so much anymore, and I've never had it happen at UCOR, but a lot of times, in a male-dominated area, there will be sometimes catcalling and just language that you may not find appropriate. But at UCOR, it's not like that. I mean, everybody is the most respectful and like family. So you really don't have to worry about that here, and really not anymore in this day and age. It's come a long way with that. I pretty much stand up for myself, and anybody knows when they mess with me, I'm not gonna. So I don't have a whole lot of problem with it, but yeah.
What about you, Casey or Maddy?
I really don't. The people I work with, I'm under 4 foremen, 2 general foremen, a superintendent, who are all women. Our workforce is so diverse in gender that I really don't see any disparity in that between the male workers out there in the field.
And Maddy?
It's tough being the only female on the job site as far as on the D&D side. I'm not sure about the other side. So dealing with unconscious bias and questioning our capabilities, that's probably the biggest obstacle for me.
Excellent. Do we have any final questions as we hit the end of our time together today? Going once, twice. Well, thank you very much, Casey, Tina, and Maddy, for volunteering your time to be with us today. I know this is a stretch outside your comfort zone, and we really do appreciate you saying yes to this opportunity to speak to our folks. I think it was a wonderful conversation, well worthwhile. If our attendees all liked what you saw today, we do host webinars just like this, at least once a month. See, words are hard. At least once a month on a variety of topics. So do make sure that you're subscribed to VPPPA's newsletters to not miss out on our next presentation. On March 23rd, we will be joined by Derek Sang with Bulwark to discuss heat stress and vector-borne disease. And of course, March 29th through 30th, we will be in Houston, Texas, hosting our first PSM Best Practices Training Summit. And on April 6th, as Jack mentioned, we'll be joined by folks from Morton Salt for the Labor Summit to discuss engineering out hazards. As also a reminder, registration will open on March 7th for the 2023 Safety Plus Symposium held in Orlando, Florida this September 17th through 20th. So if you'd like to take advantage of those early bird prices, don't wait. Registration for all of our upcoming events can be found in the description below today's presentation or at vpppa.org. As always, please be on the lookout for the post-webinar survey in your inboxes. We appreciate your feedback, and if there are any particular topics that you'd like to see us cover in the future, do please let us know. Thank you all, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody.